All right, welcome to another deep dive. Today, this time we're tackling a topic that's pretty mysterious. And to be honest, kind of unsettling too. We're talking about the mark of the beast from the book of Revelation.
Yes, the mark of the beast. Always a fascinating one.
Yeah, so to guide us, we're using an excerpt from the Crossway article called What is the Mark of the Beast? But just so you know, this isn't like just some code-breaking exercise.
No.
It's about really understanding how power and control work. You know, how those forces have played out throughout history, and maybe even how they're playing out today.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting is the way that this passage really taps into some basic human anxieties. I mean, just imagine it, this beast rising up out of the sea.
Oh, yeah.
10 horns, 7 heads, covered in these blasphemous names.
Okay, stop right there. Just that image alone is giving me chills.
Yeah.
I can definitely see why people have been fascinated and maybe a little freaked out by this, like for centuries.
That's serious, yeah.
But the article says that this beast is probably symbolic, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's not meant to be taken literally. It's more about what it represents.
Okay, so it's not like some literal monster from the deep. It's more like a powerful image for the ways that humans abuse power.
It represents, empires, tyrannical rulers throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of scholars point to the Roman Empire, which would have been a major power when Revelation was written.
Yeah, that makes sense. So instead of a monster, we have this symbol for human tyranny. But there's also this whole thing about a mortal wound that heals on the beast. What is that all about?
That's a really intriguing detail, right? The mortal wound, like the beast itself, is symbolic.
Okay.
And it points to this pattern we see throughout history, where oppressive powers, they seem to be defeated, but then they come back even stronger.
Yeah, I mean, history does seem to repeat itself in some ways. That's actually kind of scary when you think about it.
Yeah.
But here's something that I don't quite understand. The article says that this beast is given power and authority by God. So does that mean that God is somehow behind all the bad stuff?
That's a really great question.
Yeah.
And it gets to one of the most complex ideas in theology, God's sovereignty.
Okay.
It's not saying that God is the source of evil or that God approves of what this beast is doing.
Right.
It's saying that God allows these things to happen. But that doesn't diminish God's ultimate power.
Okay. Yeah, it's tough to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it is.
It's a tough concept.
But it is important.
Okay, so we've got this symbolic beast representing power-hungry empires, allowed to do some pretty terrible things. But then the article brings up this second beast.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about this one.
So this one is a little different. This one emerges from the earth, and it has 2 horns like a lamb.
Okay.
But it speaks like a dragon.
Whoa. That sounds a little shady, right?
Yes, very deceptive.
A lamb, you think of like innocence, gentleness, but a dragon? Come on, that's danger.
Right.
So what's the message behind this whole disguise?
Well, this second beast is often called the false prophet.
Okay.
It represents this kind of deceptive religious authority that supports the first beast. Yeah. That props it up.
Oh, okay, so it's like a system of beliefs or an ideology that makes people think that oppressive power is good.
Right.
Or even divinely ordained.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it.
So it's like a 1-2 punch, You've got the raw power of the first beast, and the second beast is like, hey, it's all good, It's okay, even righteous.
Yeah. Making it seem acceptable.
That is chilling. And the article mentions this historical figure, Antiochus V Epiphanes. He forced people to worship Greek gods. Is that an example of what the second beast might represent?
Absolutely, yeah. Antiochus V Epiphanes is a classic example of how religious authority can be twisted for control.
Yeah.
He desecrated the Jewish temple, tried to force people to abandon their beliefs.
Wow, that's a stark reminder of how this can happen. Okay, so we've got these 2 beasts, one brute force, the other deception. And now I think we're getting to the part everyone's been waiting for, the mark of the beast. What exactly is this mark? Is it like a literal mark, like a tattoo or a brand?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The article suggests that it might not be something physical at all. It's more likely a symbol.
Yeah.
It represents where your allegiance lies, who and what you're willing to follow.
Wait, so it's not like a barcode on your hand or something?
No, not necessarily.
But the article also talks about how you can't buy or sell without it. That sounds pretty serious.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, think about it. That detail really highlights the economic control that this system holds over people.
It's like you're totally shut out if you don't conform.
Exactly.
And that makes you wonder, how much pressure people might be under to get this mark, even if it goes against their beliefs.
Absolutely. That's the heart of the issue.
So it's like you have to choose between staying true to yourself or being able to participate in society, even just to buy basic necessities.
Right. That's a powerful dilemma.
Yeah, it really makes you think. And all of this ties into this mystery of the number 666.
Ah, yes, 666.
Which the article mentions, has been interpreted in many different ways.
Yes, many different ways.
Okay, so we've got this symbolic beast representing tyrannical power, this deceptive false prophet figure, and now this mark that might not even be physical, but represents some kind of ultimate compromise. Where do we go from here? What does all of this mean for us? I'm already feeling a little overwhelmed.
Well, don't worry, we're going to break it all down. We're going to explore what these ancient symbols might be telling us about the world today.
Okay, I'm ready for part 2, so stay tuned, listeners, because we're just getting started on this deep dive. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Mark of the Beast. When we left off, we were talking about how the mark might be more of a symbolic choice than a physical mark, and how that could even relate to us today. So I'm really curious, what kinds of marks could we be carrying around without even realizing it?
Well, think about some of the things that drive a lot of our decisions today, like wealth, status, convenience. Sometimes when we're chasing these things, we might end up supporting systems or ideas that actually go against what we truly believe in.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, we get so caught up in keeping up with the Joneses that we don't stop to think about, if what we're doing actually matches up with our values.
Exactly. For example, think about the companies we choose to buy from. Do they treat their workers fairly?
Right.
Or what about the politicians we support? Do their policies reflect our beliefs, even if we don't agree with them on everything?
Yeah, those are some really good examples. It's like even small decisions can feed into these larger systems without us even being aware of it.
And remember how the article talks about the beast having the power to control buying and selling?
Oh, yeah.
That idea takes on a whole new meaning in our digital age. Think about all the data we share online, the algorithms that track our every move.
It's kind of creepy when you think about it.
It is. And it raises some big questions about data privacy, freedom of choice. Who really holds the power in our digital world?
So we're not just talking about buying groceries anymore. It's like this whole digital marketplace where our choices are being monitored and analyzed. It makes you wonder if maybe we've already given up some control without even realizing it.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
This is making me see the whole Mark of the Beast concept in a whole new light.
Yeah.
It's not just some abstract idea about the apocalypse. It's about the choices we're making every day.
I think that's why this passage is so timeless and relevant. It's a challenge to be aware of the systems we're a part of and to make deliberate choices about where we stand.
Okay, so we've established that the mark is more of a symbol about the choices we make. But what about that number, 666? It's a big part of this whole thing, and it's honestly a little creepy. What's the deal with that number? Is there some kind of hidden message there?
Well, the meaning of 666, it's one of the most debated aspects of Revelation.
Yeah, I bet.
The article mentions some of the theories. One interpretation is that it points to the Roman Emperor Nero, because his name, when calculated using a specific numerical system, adds up to 666.
So it's like a secret code pointing to a specific ruler.
Right, exactly.
That's pretty clever.
But there are other interpretations, too. Some people see 666 as a representation of human imperfection or a symbol of rebellion against God. The number 7 is often associated with completeness or perfection in the Bible.
Right.
So 666 could be seen as falling short of that ideal.
It's like a twisted version of perfection. Definitely fits with the whole beastly theme.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the exact meaning of 666 is still up for debate.
It is.
But what's the main takeaway we should have about this number?
I think the most important thing to remember is that it represents something that stands against God and his values. It's a warning sign.
Okay.
A symbol of something that's fundamentally wrong.
Okay, so whether we see it as a literal number or a symbol, 666 is meant to make us feel uneasy, to warn us about something that's not right. It's interesting, though, because the article points out that the beast isn't all-powerful. It's actually allowed to do these things, which brings us back to this whole idea of God being in control.
Right, and that's a really important point.
Yeah.
It circles back to that complex theological concept of God's sovereignty.
Yeah.
God doesn't make bad things happen.
Yeah.
But he allows them to exist.
So even with all this power, the beast is still subject to God's plan.
Exactly.
But that brings up some pretty deep questions. Why would God allow bad things to happen at all? What purpose could there be in suffering?
These are questions that theologians have been wrestling with for centuries.
Yeah.
And there are no easy answers.
Wow. We're really getting into some deep theological waters here. But I guess that's what makes a deep dive so interesting, right?
It is.
Exploring these complicated ideas
That's right.
and trying to understand them better.
Yeah.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about symbolic beasts, the power of technology, and how it can be used to control us, and that mysterious number 6666. But at the end of the day, what does it all mean for us? What should we be taking away from all of this?
I think the most important message is that we have a choice. We can choose to follow the systems of power and control, or we can choose to resist them.
So it's not about trying to predict the future or decode some ancient secret. It's about making conscious choices in our everyday lives
Exactly.
about who and what we support.
That's right.
I have to admit, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by all of this information. It feels like a lot to process.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin to apply these ideas to our own lives?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore further in part 3 of our deep dive. We're going to get practical and talk about steps we can take to resist these marks of our time. So stay tuned. We're going to unpack all of this together.
Welcome back, deep divers. We're wrapping up our exploration of the mark of the beast. And to be honest, I'm still kind of reeling from all the insights we've uncovered.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
Yeah.
But the most important part of this deep dive is figuring out what we actually do with this knowledge.
Right. Like, we've talked about how the mark is more about the choices we make than a literal mark on our bodies. And we've explored some of those modern day marks, things like consumerism, technology, politics. But how do we actually resist these systems? I mean, it feels like a pretty big challenge.
Well, I think it starts with awareness. We have to pay attention to the systems we're part of and ask ourselves some tough questions.
Like what?
Like, where are we spending our money? What information are we consuming?
Yeah.
Who and what are we giving our allegiance to?
Okay, so becoming more mindful, more intentional. But that sounds kind of overwhelming.
Well,
Are we supposed to overthink every single decision?
I don't think it has to be that complicated.
Yeah.
Start small. Maybe it's choosing to support a local business
Yeah.
instead of a giant corporation,
Right.
or taking a break from social media to avoid that constant barrage of targeted advertising.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Even small acts of resistance can make a difference.
I like that. It's like building a muscle, right? You start with small exercises and gradually work your way up.
Exactly. And the article makes a really important point. We don't have to do this alone.
Oh,
It
right.
talks about community
Yep.
and finding support in others who share our values.
Yeah, we're all in this together, right?
Yeah.
Trying to navigate a world that's full of temptations and distractions.
And speaking of staying strong,
Uh.
don't underestimate the power of speaking up. When you see something that goes against your values, say something. Challenge the status quo. Support organizations that are fighting for a better world.
So it's not just about individual choices. It's about working together to create real change. I like that.
It is about collective action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is actually making me feel a little bit more hopeful. We actually have the power to make a difference.
We do. The mark of the beast, whether we understand it literally or symbolically, should not be a source of fear or paralysis. It should be a call to action, a reminder that we have the power to choose a different path.
Wow, that's a powerful way to think about it. So to sum it all up, be aware, be intentional, find community, and speak up.
Yes,
Those are some pretty concrete steps we can all take.
they are. And remember, even amidst the complexities and challenges of our world, there is always hope. We have the power to choose faithfulness, to resist oppression, and to create a more just and loving world.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you learned something new, gained some fresh perspectives, and maybe even feel a little bit more empowered to face the challenges of our time. Until next time, keep diving deep.